Cape Town. It's one of the most breathtaking cities in the world. But if you're planning to visit here or even retire like we're doing, then there are some things that absolutely no one tells you until you're already here, and then maybe it's too late. From unexpected power cuts to unbelievable winds to some of the best and cheapest food you'll ever eat, Cape Town is full of surprises. And today, as I take you through a day in my life here, I'm sharing 9 things that will definitely surprise you about this city, so you'll know exactly what to expect. Now, these are things that I don't see other people talking about, so I want you to be fully prepared if you visit here. And indeed, these are things that you should research for any country you're planning on visiting or even retiring to. So let's start with something that catches every visitor off guard. It's 7:30 a.m. and time to start my day. But before we dive into Cape Town's biggest surprises, here's a little reality check. I'm here alone right now because James had to fly back to the UK for work. So what's it actually like waking up solo in Cape Town? Well, first things first, I need my morning coffee, and trust me, with the way electricity works, you'll appreciate the ability to make a cup of coffee first thing. Then it's time for a little work, but let's jump into surprise number 1, which is load shedding, a polite way of saying power cuts. Most of the time, Cape Town and indeed South Africa feels like a first world country, but load shedding reminds you it isn't. Well, if it looks dark in here, that's because it is. And that's because one of the wonders of living in Cape Town is dealing with load shedding, and that's a kind of polite way of saying power cuts. Now, we all thought that they had ended because almost for a year there had been no load shedding, and Eskom, which is the one and only power company in South Africa, had claimed that they had sorted out all the inefficiencies and it was all fixed. And then suddenly on Saturday the power went off. In fact, at one stage on Sunday it went up to level 6, which is the highest level, which meant people's power was off for up to like 9 or 10 hours a day. As it is right now, it's dropped down to level 4, but here we are in the middle of my working day and there is no power. So there's a few ways that you can handle this. Obviously I can work off my laptop. You can also purchase an uninterrupted power supply, so I can be sure that my Wi-Fi will continue working for 3 or 4 hours while the power's off. And the second thing you can buy is a jackery or a battery, and this is enough to power lights and so on. Anyway, that is one of the surprises and one of the joys, I say sarcastically, about living and owning a property in South Africa. Now, hopefully this is a temporary blip, but it's one of the things that you should be aware of. Now, of course, if you're staying in an Airbnb or a hotel or whatever, they will have their own generators or their own batteries to ensure that power keeps going, and the same is true for restaurants as well. But it is a pain in the backside, and one of the things that people are not going to tell you about coming and living in South Africa. Another really surprising thing that you will not know about Cape Town, especially if you don't live here and if people haven't told you, is the fact that it can get really, really windy here, especially in certain parts of Cape Town. And one of the reasons that we bought in Bantry Bay is because we are pretty much protected from the wind. So when it gets super windy and you go to very trendy places like Camps Bay and suddenly you're getting sandblasted because it is so windy. This may not be a typical day in my life, but it is a day to day. I've had some new dining room chairs delivered, and so I'm going to have the fun this afternoon of putting them together. And fortunately, I have someone coming to collect the old dining room chairs tomorrow so that they can make use of them rather than going into landfill. I'm sure there is someone that would appreciate them. So let me show you the finished results. So after a bit of a challenge putting these together, finally got it done. I hope you agree that the new chairs are a significant improvement over the old ones and add a little bit of pizzazz to the kitchen area, dining room area. Okay, so I've done my hour's work for the day. I've put the chairs together, and so now it is time to go to the gym. And from our place, the gym is just a short stroll down this street. In fact, that's where Sea Point, our main town, is, and you can see the sea in the distance. So I've joined a gym for the 2 months that I'm here. Actually, it wasn't that cheap, and it's not the greatest of gyms, but it is close by, and I always need to remove the reasons for not going to the gym, and so having one that's close by and within walking distance removes one of the excuses for not going. So anyway, let me take you down to the gym with me. So literally 3-minute walk from our apartment, and it brings you into Sea Point, which is a place that's really got everything. There's a couple of like indoor shopping malls. Here's the first one here, and there's a spa and a Woolworths to buy food amongst other things. And the spa here is quite a posh supermarket, so I think sort of Waitrose, and Woolies is kind of like Marks and Spencer's. Anyway, my gym is in the second indoor mall place, which is a bit further down here. But okay, here we are at the second shopping mall of the Point, and this is where my gym is. More coffee shops and Checkers, which is kind of like a nice version of Tesco's, I guess. To be quite honest, all the supermarkets here are better than the ones in the UK. So I'll tap in. And I found a lunchtime, so it's not too busy in here, but it can get really busy. As you can see, it's actually not a huge gym, but like I said, it's close by. It's got all the things I need, so I am gonna spend the next half an hour doing some exercise. Well, that's my workout done for the day. So kind of good, I've done a bit of exercise, and now I need to do a little bit of shopping, so let's go into Checkers and have a look around. They always have Starbucks in there, Checkers, and considering this is a mid-range supermarket, they have freshly made sushi. You can even have a sit at the sushi bar, and there's fresh salads to be had, loads of fresh fruits, and a bakery. They have lots of things in the bakery, but it's quite hard, as you can see over there, to find anything but white bread. Lots of cheeses. I don't know about you, but I really enjoy going around foreign supermarkets. You get a sort of sense of the culture when you have a look around. They have a big fish aisle, frozen foods, and all the other things that you'd expect. Fantastic meats, and lots of, I'm trying to find it to show you, lots of pre-prepared foods as well, pies, sandwiches, whole chickens, which I bought the other night, which was really nice. And it's worth saying the quality of the food in the supermarkets is very good, and of course it's all 2/3 of the price of what it would be back in the UK, so you always feel like you're getting a good bargain. Interestingly enough, a lot of the time here it's a bit like in the US, it's often as cheap to eat out as it is to buy food from the supermarket. So I'm now going to head back to the apartment, and then I'm heading out to meet a friend for supper tonight, so we will go for a walk along the promenade later on at the end of the working day, and also I'll take you to the restaurant with me. Now, as well as issues with load shedding and electricity supply, in 2018 Cape Town also had a massive water shortage, and it meant that there was water rationing, and indeed when you look around now you sometimes see people saying please turn your water off and so on. Now, apparently Cape Town is investing in some desalination plants, which makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of water here. But touch wood again, since then, there haven't been many issues in the last few visits we've had here. There haven't been any issues with water supply, but it is just another reminder that South Africa isn't a first world country. Okay, another thing I want to talk to you about, which is something that I have unfortunately experienced, is that Cape Town has one of the highest UV levels in the world, and therefore it is really easy to get sunburnt just when you're walking around or even when it's cloudy. So you want to make sure you're putting as high a sun factor on as possible. I always try to remember to put factor 50 on my face and 30 on the rest of my body. But last weekend I went out, I was just driving, and I forgot to put sunscreen on, and I came back feeling rather sun-kissed. So don't be fooled by the beautiful weather or the fact that you're on vacation, or even like today where it's a fairly cloudy day, you still need sun protection. Another thing that I want to touch upon, which you may well have heard, is how safe is South Africa. And indeed, a lot of places you'll go, you'll see a lot of security. You'll see private houses with fences around and electric gates to get in. And indeed, in this building, you have to have a fingerprint to get into the main gate. Then you go to reception, and if they don't know you have to sign in at reception before they'll let you go to the apartment that you want to visit. And of course, this is all very good for us owners because it means that we feel really safe here. But I think when you're a foreigner and you don't expect to see all of that stuff, it can be surprising. But if I'm really honest with you, touch wood again, in 10 years of coming in here, I've never had anything bad happen to me. And that leads me on to the next surprise, which is that Ubers are super cheap here. And the reason why that connects with safety is because when it gets dark, it makes a lot of sense to grab an Uber and travel by Uber, and you're going to spend £1 or £2 to get from A to B. It's really not expensive. There's also Bolt here as well, and Ubers are everywhere. You can book one and within a minute it will arrive. So that is something else that you might not be surprised to know, is that Uber is very cheap. It's a really good way to get around. It's easy to drive here, but if you don't have a car, then Uber is a great way to get around. And of course, you know what you're paying before you get in the cab, which is why I prefer Uber over just grabbing a taxi cab, because you can see the route, you know what you're going to pay, and so they're not going to try and rip you off. Another thing that you might be surprised to know is the water is absolutely freezing here. Now, it looks really inviting, beautiful blue, but the minute you put your foot in, you realize it is the Atlantic Ocean, and it's freezing all year round thanks to the Benguela, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, currents. Now, the other thing that you want to be mindful of is that many beaches have really strong currents and riptides, so make sure if you are going to go in the water, and some people do, that you are only going in places where it is said it's safe to swim. Now, there are certain parts of Cape Town, like Muizenberg Beach, where the water is warmer, and of course if you go over to Durban, then you start to be more on the Indian Ocean, so the water is much warmer there, which is why a lot of people go on vacation there. Well, I'm on my way out to meet friends for dinner, and one of the things that I'm trying to do every day is go for a stroll on the promenade. You can see what a beautiful evening is, and there are lots of people out and about exercising post-work as it starts to cool down a bit. Lots of joggers, and I did set myself a goal of running this because it's about 3 miles down here through Sea Point to Green Point, but that hasn't actually happened yet, so not entirely sure whether it will happen. But anyway, it is a stunningly beautiful evening, and of course you get to see Lion's Head and all the mountains behind us, as well as the beach here, and a lot of people start gathering over there for sunset. Anyway, I've got about a 10-minute walk to meet friends for dinner at one of our favourite restaurants, sort of a low-key restaurant that does fantastic food, so I'm looking forward to that. So that's a wrap on my day in Cape Town, from dodging load shedding to ploughing through windy days to experiencing amazing food. Cape Town has got so much to offer, and as long as you are really mindful when you visit here of all the things that I've mentioned today, like I said, some of those you would have heard before, but most of them you wouldn't. So know all that I've said to you, and you will have an amazing trip. And of course, I miss James, and I really wish he were here, but I wouldn't swap spending my winter, or what is the summer, here rather than being in grey and cold winter. So I hope wherever you are staying warm and enjoying yourself, and we will see you next time on James and Rob.